Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Gemma and I are going to do a lovely double act, which is entirely unrehearsed, but hopefully will go smoothly. The title is Retrofit Innovation with AirEx and Together Housing, and we're going to be talking about the way that AirEx's innovative energy efficiency measures have been introduced into programs, and particularly into Gemma's retrofit program at Together. So we're going to talk a bit about us. We're going to run through some example projects, the lessons learned, and where we are and where we think the next steps are going to be for that program. So quickly about us. I'm Richard Kemp-Harper, Chief Commercial Officer at AirEx Technologies. AirEx is a manufacturer and supplier of a new energy efficiency measure for retrofit. We work with social housing landlords and fuel property schemes, particularly focusing on those older properties that have suspended timber floors, so energy efficiency and heat loss reduction for those older properties that are often harder to treat. And we work really well, and we're working with customers who've got challenges with resident acceptance, and also where teams are working to make projects cost effective and deliverable. So that's typical customers and who we work with, and you'll see some examples of that as we go through. So Gemma, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself as well?
So I'm Gemma Bowden, Senior Manager of Net Zero at Together Housing. So Together Housing have 38,000 properties across the northwest, sort of Yorkshire and Lancashire, primarily in the Calderdale and Lancashire regions. And we have some quite expansive retrofit projects, I would say. So we've been installing heat pumps, solar PV and battery for quite some years now, alongside a lot of normal retrofit works, which we split into what we determine to be light retrofit and deep retrofit. The light retrofit is cavity wall insulation, underfloor insulation, loft insulation, and now, of course, AirEx. And then deep retrofit is external wall insulation, loft insulation, and underfloor or AirEx as applicable. We're quite sort of forward thinking in our approaches, and we try and test as much innovation as we can in our approach to decarbonise those more hard to treat or difficult properties. And we're always looking for new products that can not only help the health of the property itself, but also beneficial to the residents for either fuel poverty or for the health of the occupants of our homes. As it said there, we've been working very closely on KTP, Knowledge Transfer Partnership with the University of Huddersfield. It's just about come to a close. So we're putting the final reports together on our tenant engagement. But one of the things that really struck us from that is how well academic research can actually fit in with retrofit. So what we've actually kept on our research associate, and we're going to be utilising her to collate data from all of these innovations and the case studies that we've been working on. And the wonderful thing about innovation is when it works and it's beneficial, it becomes business as usual. And now AirEx is very much business as usual for Together Housing. And we've done quite a lot of work so far, just shy of 500 properties, I think, Richard. So yeah, growing bigger and bolder every year. And let's hope to hear about SHF Wave 3 funding shortly.
Absolutely. Thank you. The focus of this session and Masterclass for you is about innovation. So we're talking about the introduction of AirEx as an innovative, novel and retrofit energy efficiency measure. But while it's innovation, I'd also like to point out that we've done quite a lot of work. Louise, who introduced the call, was actually involved in one of our early projects in Portsmouth several years ago. But by now we've done over 4,000 homes with 30,000 units installed, and that represents a potential saving for those homes of 28 million kilograms of CO2 and £27 million worth of average saving for residents. So already significant impact, and as AirEx, that's the thing that we care about. But focusing on the innovation piece, AirEx is one of 3 new measures that have been included in SAC and RDSAC since 2012. So that's not a high rate of innovation, shall we say, in the construction and retrofit industry. And even more rare is we have been approved by Ofgem for Eco4. And there's a bit of getting the ducks in a row between Trustmark and the scheme providers to make sure that all the consumer protection things are properly in place for eco. But when that finally happens and that's announced, which should be shortly, we will be the first ever new measure type included in eco. There's been innovation measures, but this is a new measure type. So yes, innovation's a challenge. It's a rare thing. It's a precious thing. So yeah, keen to just talk through with you today about what that's looked like, and particularly from Gemma's point of view, how she has worked through to integrate us into, as you've heard, into her retrofit programs. So we'll look at some example projects. I'm going to start off with the work we've been doing for 2.5 years now with the Warmer Homes Scotland scheme. So this is the National Fuel Poverty Scheme across Scotland. That's around £70 million worth of retrofit funding supporting fuel poor households across Scotland. And in the last 2.5 years, we've done 2,400, nearly 2,500 homes with AirEx installed as part of that programme. I think in the last year's report, Warmworks, who ran the scheme, said that we are around the third most common measure installed into homes across Scotland. And our product, the smart air bricks that give the energy efficiency saving, are installed alongside other measures as it's a whole home approach, as you will be familiar with past. The reason that Scotland has been slightly ahead of the game is that they had a more flexible approach to adoption of innovation. We did a small pilot in the early days, trying things out in a few times so they could see how it worked into their programme. And then with support from the Scottish Government, they rolled that out then into the mainstream programme, particularly in the last year as the latest scheme started in October 2023 and through into 2024. And they were running at a rate of around 200 or 250 homes a month with AirEx installation over the last year. A slight interruption while we wait for budgets and so on. Just at the moment, like the wave 2 to 3 hiatus that we have just now. But that program is running on, and we've already seeing really good feedback. There's a quote from a resident. If you'd like to look at this online, we've got a case study video that we did jointly with Warmworks around this. So this is a national scale rollout of an innovation that was adopted into that scheme. The Warmworks model, if you're not familiar, is integrating the assessment and coordination at the central level, but then the installation is across a whole range of installers. And so we've got onboarded several installers who are installing AirEx, and our work is already supporting growth in that supply chain with this new measure, adding new work for those suppliers. So that's one case study, but actually I'm sure the thing that you're keen to hear about is Gemma's case study and how she and the team have led their program. So Gemma, over to you again.
Yeah, so one of the targets, obviously, for all of us is to reach an EPCC. And the quickest way of doing that is not always the right way of doing that. So you have to come up with different innovations. For example, Together Housing have done deep retrofit programs with external wall insulation, loft and ventilations. And of course, heat pumps are a big challenge at the moment with the bad press that's out there, although it is getting better. So it's the data that is integral to all of our projects. If we can't collect the data to evidence that success, then to us it's not a success. So we love the fact that AirEx and other assets, I should call them, that we are installing are all connected assets. So we can collect that data, analyze it, and then show exactly what it's doing and how. And that's for me is really exciting. So in Together Housing, we've got a data warehouse where we are pooling all of our information that comes in from all these connected assets into one place. And I'm really excited to get that AirEx data into that. Oop, yeah. And then if you go on to the next one, that's even more applicable, I think. Richard? That one, that's the one.
Yeah.
So as I say, it's not always the right thing to do the best thing for the EPC before AirEx got all of the accreditations in line. We couldn't utilize it with Trustmark, for example. But then you can't just install underfloor insulation It could be the moisture levels, it could be the void cavity isn't correct sizes, or it could simply be the tenants don't want their flooring pulled up, and with the risk of it not going down correctly, even though we would replace it if anything happened. They still refuse, even though underfloor insulation is a good thing. So what we've done is we've coupled underfloor insulation with AirEx. If underfloor insulation is not feasible, AirEx goes in regardless. And then if underfloor insulation is feasible, we will consider doing both, because what that does is it allows us to collect that data for the health of that void. So not only can you prove that the underfloor insulation is working, you can prove the health of that void. But if you've not got the insulation there, again, it improves the health of that void. So we all know how much heat loss is through the floors. I actually have a heat pad under my feet when I'm working at home because I've got a massive void under my cellar that I can't access. So, we do have to stop that airflow but make it healthy. And that is why I think AirEx is so good, because you can not only install it and it works, you can install it, the tenants are warmer, cheaper bills. They don't have to have the heating on quite so long because their heat loss isn't as bad. But also we can access that data and ensure that health of the occupant and property is monitored. And let's face it, with PAS 2035 and the changes coming in, it's that monitoring element that we've all been missing out on for some years now. And utilizing products such as AirEx and monitoring data that you can access can only benefit us in the long run.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, onto some lessons learned for you. Talked obviously about the data and so on, but
Yeah,
there's more there.
exactly. I am a bit of a geek, I'm afraid. Data is everything to me. The more I can have, the better, because that just builds the case studies for growth, further innovations, and where that can lead on to. So at Together Housing, we trial innovative insulation solutions such as sprayed cork, insulating paints, and the data we can collect from all of those being monitored and sensors allows us to not only prove whether they do or don't work, we have come across some that don't, but also from the data we can understand any proactive things that we can do. So we can actually see if something's not quite right. And that can be with the engagement of tenants as well as the health of the void itself, or the machinery, for example, with heat pumps, you can get alerts if there are repairs needed. So that data to me allows you to understand the property, the occupants, and what is good for each of those things, which leads us on to the engagement side. Innovation or change rather is difficult for all of us in one way or another. So it is about that education piece and explaining in simple terms. Everybody hates jargon these days, including myself. So simple educational terms to show and teach the benefits, which to my mind you can't do without that data backing it up. The residents that have had it sing its praises, because we ensure that we do a whole house retrofit, and as I say, right first time, and make sure it's the correct insulation or the correct product for the correct property. And then it's not just about our residents, it's every stakeholder that needs education. So educating our repairs and maintenance teams as to what it's about and what they might need to do in the future if new ones are required, if they get damaged, or battery replacements, things like that. So you have to onboard everybody within the organization. And that's something we've really improved upon in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, is educating everybody, all stakeholders in our net zero business as usual. We now have renewable engineers, for example, who are trained in every aspect of our net zero programs so they can repair and maintain going forward, which leads us quite nicely to the business as usual element. Change is a process, and you have to keep going through that cycle until it becomes business as usual. However, the business as usual only moves us forward and drives us to new innovations and new changes, so they can then be brought on board as business as usual. For us, the absolute crux of everything we do is we have to move toward a better property for better health of occupants. We're really strict on ourselves on keeping that mantra that it's fabric first, whole house approach for the benefit of our tenants, because we want them healthy and happy in their homes.
Thanks, Gemma. So, from this point of view, as a small, growing, but fairly young business, working with customers like Together Housing and Gemma has been really important for us to understand the place where our products fit best and how to integrate with the work that's going on, the supply chain, and into those partnerships. And, from our point of view, it's understanding the market. It's also about how do we help educate customers and the supply chain about our products. So the feedback that we've had from customers like Gemma is where products work really well, which is in the older homes, which is not entirely surprising to us, but this idea that they're challenging to retrofit, the issues with the complexity of the floor void, the suitability or otherwise of underfloor insulation. It's been really good to get feedback on that. We've realised how important residents' acceptance is, and as our products, you saw the picture there, it's a very simple install from outside the home, replacing the existing air bricks with a new smart air brick. And that means that there's very little interaction inside the home. It's non-disruptive for residents. And we found that resident acceptance is really high. And also, it's one of those products which gives an immediate benefit. At least in the cooler months, residents can detect a change, an improvement in their comfort as soon as it goes in. And we've had good feedback and from projects about how important it is to have cost-effective measures that are easy to fit in around other work, or as Gemma described, into the light retrofit program as an ongoing business as usual thing, as well as the deep retrofit side. Some key learnings for us is the importance of the partnerships. I'm sure this isn't new for anybody, but actually what's been really valuable with the Together Housing project is working with their key installation partner to us building a relationship with them, training them, supporting them in using the products and installing them so that we can give the outcome that Gemma and the team are looking for. So that partnership and long-term relationship, both with Gemma as the client, but also with the installer partner, has been really important. And those stable project teams mean that we can all learn and develop the processes and support and make things go really smoothly so that the projects are cost effective and deliverable. And so from that, we've learned, and this is particularly relevant as we look to the warmer homes programs, full supply chain involvement is often needed. We're looking at a PAS framework, of course, and so the designers, the coordinators, assessors need to understand a new product and how it fits and where it fits in designs under the PAS framework, and then passing that on to the installers so they can fit it compliantly. So everybody in the supply chain needs to understand, which leads us on then to the education piece. And we've discovered over the last year or more how important both the education of course, of selling a product and its use and application in homes, but also the integration into retrofit projects, how it sits, what the decision-making processes are, and how we can support the professionals working in that space with training and so on to be able to adopt and effectively take up a new measure, which is different to anything else that's on the marketplace. And it's not just one of the things that's been in everyone's drawer for the last however many years they've been working in retrofit. So that education piece, we actually run a CPD training for retrofit professionals to support that understanding of how things work in the modelling and so on. And then the other thing, Gemma touched on it briefly, is particularly over the last year, we've been gaining confidence in the route to compliance and through getting insurance-backed guarantees, through aligning this into PAS and into the Trustmark lodgements that are now happening in a number of projects. And the final confidence piece of that is the Ofgem approval. And as I mentioned, the final piece of the puzzle, getting the accreditation bodies aligned with all of that and making sure that the training and accreditations are all in place for that. So understanding of the confidence of the route to compliance is, of course, critical. not just so that we know that things are done right for homes, but particularly for the customer protection as we get into the eco programs. Yeah, Gemma, next steps for you. What does the ongoing program look like?
Well, hopefully very soon we'll hear about our ambitious Wave 3 program. But the wonderful thing about Together Housing is that although, yes, we absolutely want to get our bid from Wave 3, we will, on a smaller scale without grant funding, continue to do what we plan to do. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get something at least. We'll be starting our pre-start meetings for all of our work streams, which are the air source heat pump schemes, which we do across Yorkshire and Lancashire. We've got a light retrofit program where we're targeting 4,000 properties, and then we're doing 500 deep retrofit properties, which are non-traditionals. We actually have 4,500 non-traditional properties within our portfolio of every make and model you can think of, at least one of them. So we'll be starting the resident engagements for those very shortly. And utilising our knowledge transfer partnership information, we've actually test piloting 2 different forms of resident engagement this time, just to see which sort of process works best. And then obviously, as I say, data, collecting the data to make sure that what we have done within those programs works. As I mentioned before, collecting feedback, something that is coming in with the PAS 2035 changes even more so, but we've sort of set our own program of collecting better feedback. We have a net zero resident engagement group that's just formed, so we'll be getting more and more feedback from them, publishing those case studies that we are putting together. We have 1,000 ground source heat pumps, nearly 2,000 something air source heat pumps, and we need to get all that information together and the case studies of where we have really improved the benefits for tenants. And same with AirEx, we need to get that data plugged in, pulling all those numbers of where we have saved tenants money on their fuel bills and had warmer homes. We need to shout that across the board as to what's worked and what hasn't, so that we know where to go. One of the things I'm most proud of at this year's work is that we're installing all of our retrofit works, including heat pumps, to our voids. So that has now become business as usual in the Lancashire side. So our void team install all installations, air source heat pumps and AirEx. And then we're moving that over to the Yorkshire side this year. Installing more sensors is a big target for us this year because we want to collect the data of where we haven't put those assets in yet. So we want the before data, which is something we haven't done previously. And as I say, we've got our non-traditional build strategy because we've got quite a lot to work through on those. So that's going to be a big task over the next couple of years. And that's not even to mention our high-rise strategy, which is also coming out shortly. So we are very busy, for sure.
Really, thanks, Gemma. So for AirEx, we'd love to reproduce the learning that we've gained from the current round of schemes, both the non-funded stuff that Gemma and others have been working on, but also Wave 2.1 and reproduce that into Wave 3. There's a lot of learning we've gained, as I say, the structure of the projects and how we can support and engage with teams to support delivery. We're in a good position now to ramp up. We'd love to do, instead of 4,000 homes so far, we'd love to do 4,000 homes a year or more. So keep growing that delivery and support and have the impact that we'd love to see. And we've got ongoing product improvement and new product development. We're specialists in understanding ventilation and heat loss. And so we're developing both some sensing products and some ventilation products, similar to our floor vent product that works for suspended floors, looking at those for room level ventilation. So thinking of that as a system and reducing heat loss and improving resident acceptance of ventilation. So a lot more things happening for us there. We're looking at new partnerships and long-term programs. We love what we've been doing with Gemma and Together Housing in terms of building a long-term relationship that does many homes across the program, fits in with business as usual. So particularly keen to work with those who are on the call and others who are looking at those long-term programs, because we'd love to support you with those. It works best where you can gain the learning and understanding to be able to integrate things so things are smooth and easy and cost effective in those programs. And that means working with robust project teams, as I've mentioned already, and integrating with your supply chains so that things are smooth and deliverable. And Gemma's talked a lot about the data. Systems do collect data, and we're working this year, particularly with partners like Together Housing, on what that data looks like. We can provide that in a way which provides insights on homes, on the health of the home and potentially of the residents. And we're adding in new products and room sensing as well, and integrating that so that we can see potentially the before and after of what our products do, but also the other things that are going into the home, and help that understanding of the benefits for residents and the benefits for the homes that all the retrofit measures going in can have. We're connected already, so we've got our sensors and products there, so why not add sensing as 2-for-1 deal, if you like, in terms of getting a richer picture of the home. So that's stuff we're doing this year, and looking at trying to understand, and I'd love a conversation with you to understand the sort of things that are useful in terms of insights for you in terms of the homes that you've got in your portfolios.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Richard and Gemma. I thought it was a great presentation. I'm sure there'll be lots of people in the audience who have been considering, AirEx or innovation and not really knowing how to kind of go about it. And I think, Gemma's just shown you a really good example of how that's been integrated into the work at Together Housing with the voids and so on. And I think that's great.